All right, listeners, ready to unlock those squats. We're going deep today on why you might be struggling with depth. We're looking at this super interesting article from Revo PT Denver.
Okay.
They work with athletes all the time, and they see this issue a lot. And it's not just about tight hamstrings or weak glutes.
Yeah.
You know, the usual suspects.
Right. Yep. The things we always hear about.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's this sneaky culprit.
Oh, there is.
Often gets overlooked.
I'm intrigued. Lay it on us.
It's hip internal rotation, or IR for short.
Okay. Hip internal rotation.
Yeah.
A term I use every day.
Right.
What are we talking about here?
So picture this.
Yeah.
Your standing feet planted on the ground.
Yeah.
And you're trying to rotate your knees inwards
Okay.
without moving your feet.
Got it.
That subtle inward turn. That's hip internal rotation.
Huh. So it's how much my knees can kind of turn in.
Yeah.
But how does that tiny little movement affect how deep I can squat?
So think of it this way. Your pelvis is like a bowl,
Okay.
and it needs to tilt forward as you squat down. Limited hip internal rotation. It's like putting the brakes on that tilt.
Yeah.
It restricts how much those femurs, your thigh bones, can move.
So it's not just about like stretching my hamstrings to be more flexible. It's
Mhm.
about like the actual space in the joint.
Yeah. You need that space for everything to move smoothly.
Okay. That makes way more sense.
Good.
So is depth like the only reason we should be paying attention to this hip IR?
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah.
Prop and hip IR.
Yeah.
It's super important for alignment, too. Think about those knee collapses.
Oh,
During a
a
squat,
lot of fun.
when your hip IR is limited, your knees, they tend to cave inwards.
Yeah, I've felt that. And it's not.
And that puts a lot of stress on the joint.
No, it's not good. So hip IR is like my built-in knee protector.
Exactly. It keeps everything where it should be, safe and sound.
So it's not just about avoiding injury. It's got to be connected to strength too, right?
Absolutely. Hip IR helps you activate the right muscles for a powerful squat.
Really?
When you have good hip IR, you can really fire up those glutes
Okay.
and your adductors, those inner thigh muscles.
I always thought it was all about squeezing your glutes at the top.
Well, squeezing is part of it, but hip IR, it's like setting the stage. It lets those muscles work properly.
Interesting. So how do I know if I'm dealing with limited hip IR? What should I be looking out for?
Well, we talked about knee collapses. That's a big one.
Okay.
Do you feel your knees kind of wanting to drift inwards?
Yeah, sometimes they do kind of have a mind of their own.
Okay, and what about your lower back? Do you notice it rounding at the bottom of your squat?
Yeah, sometimes. So does that automatically mean I have limited hip IR?
It could be a sign, but it's really important not to self-diagnose.
Right.
If you're having pain or if you're feeling limited, you need to talk to a physical therapist.
So they can really figure out what's going on.
Exactly. They can look at how you move, see what's happening.
Got it. So let's say you've talked to a PT
Okay.
and they're like, yep, limited hip IR, that's your squat problem. What's next? Can you actually improve it?
Yes, you definitely can. The article mentions some specific drills, like 90-90 hip switches
Okay.
and shin box get-ups.
Those sound kind of interesting. But I have a feeling there's more to it than just doing a couple of exercises, right?
Right. It's not one size fits all. Everyone's body is different.
So it's not like a cookie cutter solution.
Exactly. A good physical therapist, they'll create a plan just for you.
So personalization is key.
Yes.
What are some of the key principles behind these personalized plans? What should people be focusing on?
The biggest thing is to remember that improving mobility, it takes time. It takes consistency.
Slow and steady.
Exactly. Don't try to force your body into positions it's not ready for.
Makes sense. So what about squat depth? The article said it's not one size fits all. I always thought everyone should be aiming for ass to grass.
That's a really common misconception.
So is that even realistic or safe?
Well, here's the thing. Our bodies are incredibly diverse. We all have slightly different bone structures, different joint shapes, different muscle lengths.
So what might be a comfortable squat for one person
Right.
could be a disaster for someone else.
Exactly. Blindly chasing after that ass to grass depth. It could actually hurt you.
Wow. So how do you figure out what your optimal squat depth is?
This is where working with a knowledgeable professional is crucial.
Okay.
They could look at your biomechanics and help you determine what's safe for you.
So it's like having a personalized roadmap to squat success.
Exactly. No more guessing games, no more blindly following the crowd.
That's awesome. This is all making so much sense. Now I understand why my squats have been feeling so stuck.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
So we've learned that hip IR, it's this hidden gem
Yes.
that affects everything from depth to knee health to overall strength.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Ooh, I can't wait to dive deeper.
I'm excited to share more.
But first, we're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned because we'll be right back to unpack those mobility exercises that can help you unlock your hip IR potential. Okay, we're back.
Yep.
And ready to get those hips moving. We were talking about those mobility exercises, the ones that can help improve that hip IR.
Right.
You mentioned a couple of examples like the 90-90 hip switches and shin box get-ups. Can you walk us through those?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with the 90-90 hip switch.
Okay.
Imagine you're sitting on the floor, knees bent, feet flat on the ground.
Got it.
Now you're going to rotate one leg outwards and the other inwards. So you create these two 90-degree angles with your legs.
Okay, like a pretzel, sort of.
Kind of, yeah. And then you switch from side to side.
Got it.
And as you do that, you're basically mobilizing the hip joint.
Mm-hmm.
You're releasing tension and improving your range of motion.
So it's like gently convincing those hips to open up.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. What about the shin box get-up? That sounds a little more intense.
It is. It's more dynamic.
Okay.
You're working on mobility and strength at the same time.
Okay.
So you start in a kneeling position, shins and the tops of your feet flat on the floor.
Okay.
And then you use your hip muscles to rotate your torso and stand up.
Got it.
But here's the key. You got to keep your knees in line with your toes.
Ooh, that sounds tricky.
It can be a bit challenging.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to strengthen those muscles that are responsible for hip IR.
Oh, okay. So the adductors and the glutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it also works on your balance and coordination.
So it's like a multitasking move.
Right.
It's a good one. But those are just two examples. Right? I'm guessing there's a whole bunch of exercises out there.
Oh, yeah. Tons.
Uh-huh.
And that's where working with a professional really comes in handy.
So they can see what your body needs.
Yeah. They can assess your limitations and create a program just for you. Some people might need to release tightness in certain muscles. Others might need to focus on building strength.
So it's not about doing random exercises?
No, it's about doing the right exercise.
For your body?
Yes.
Got it. So let's talk about the bigger picture. Why should people care about this stuff? Beyond just, hitting those squat goals. How does this translate to real life?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Hip IR. It's not just about squats.
Okay.
It affects pretty much everything we do. Walking, running, climbing stairs.
Yeah.
Even just sitting down. Yeah. Your hips are involved in all of it.
I never thought about it like that.
So when you improve your hip IR, it has this ripple effect. It improves your overall mobility and athletic performance.
So it's like the foundation.
Exactly. If the foundation's strong, the whole structure benefits.
That makes sense. And the article mentions something about hip IR and pain, too.
Right. Limited hip IR. It can contribute to back pain, knee pain, even foot problems.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was connected to all that.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
So by addressing this issue, you're not just improving your movement, you're improving your overall well-being.
So it's like an investment in your long-term health.
Exactly.
I like that. What would you say to someone who's feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this information? What's the one thing they should remember?
Just remember this. Hip IR is crucial. It's important for how you move. And the good news is you can improve it.
That is good news.
Start by paying attention to how your hips feel, during different activities. If you notice limitations, if you notice discomfort, talk to a professional. They can help.
It's all about understanding your body and seeking support when you need it.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so we've talked about mobility exercises, but what about strength training? Is that important too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need to strengthen those muscles that support hip internal rotation.
Yeah.
Like your gluteus medius, your gluteus minimus.
Oh, okay. So those muscles on the side of the hip?
Yeah. Those are key players. When you strengthen them, you create a more stable hip joint, which improves your IR.
Got it. So what are some exercises that people can do?
There are lots of great options. Clamshells are a good one.
Okay, I've heard of those.
You lie on your side, knees bent, feet stacked. Then you lift your top knee, keeping your feet together.
Like opening a clamshell.
Exactly. That targets the gluteus medius.
Okay, and what about side-lying hip abduction?
That one's great too. You lie on your side with your legs straight, and then you lift your top leg up towards the ceiling.
So it's like a leg raise.
Sort of, but you're really focusing on that gluteus medius.
Got it. And what about banded hip rotations?
Ah, those are fantastic.
Yeah.
You put a resistance band around your thighs, above your knees,
Okay.
and then you stand with your feet apart, knees slightly bent, and you rotate your knees outwards against the band.
So you're working those outer hip muscles.
Exactly. It helps to strengthen those external rotators,
Yeah.
which are important for balance and control.
Interesting. And what about monster walks?
Monster walks are great for strengthening your gluteus, medius, and minimus. You put a band around your ankles, stand with your feet apart, and then you step sideways,
Okay.
alternating between leading with your right and left foot.
So it's kind of like a side shuffle with resistance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it really challenges your balance and coordination.
Those all sound like great exercises, but I'm guessing it's important to start slow.
Absolutely. Don't go too hard too fast. Start with a lighter band, fewer repetitions, and then gradually increase as you get stronger.
Makes sense. So it's like any other exercise program.
Exactly. Listen to your body. And if you have any concerns, talk to your doctor or physical therapist.
Always good advice. This has been so insightful. I feel like I've learned so much about hip IR.
Me too. It's such an important topic.
It is. It's like we've uncovered this hidden secret to better movement.
And better health.
Exactly. So let's recap what we've learned about hip IR so far.
Okay, so we know that it's a fundamental movement pattern, that it affects almost everything we do.
From walking to squatting to just moving through life.
Right. And we know that individual anatomy is super important.
So the shape of your hip socket, the length of your muscles, even your past injuries, all that plays a role.
And we can't forget about the nervous system and breath. They have a huge impact on hip IR and movement control.
It's like this whole body approach.
Exactly. It's all connected.
And we talked about the importance of personalization.
Right. What works for one person might not work for another.
So it's about listening to your body.
Yes. And finding what feels best for you.
Great advice. All right, well, that's it for our deep dive into hip internal rotation.
I hope everyone found it helpful.
I know I did. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, so we've talked about like all the details of hip IR, right?
We really have.
Okay.
It's amazing how much there is to consider.
Yeah, from the anatomy to the nervous system to even like how we breathe.
It's all connected.
It really is. So now I'm thinking like, okay, I get it, hip IR is important, but how do I actually improve it?
Right. That's the million-dollar question.
Exactly. So the article talks about this, but I think it's worth repeating. This isn't a quick fix.
Definitely not. It's a journey.
Okay, I'm liking this journey metaphor. Where are we going with this?
Well, think about it like training for a marathon.
Okay.
You wouldn't expect to just wake up one day and run 26 miles, right?
No way. You got to train. You got to pace yourself. You got to listen to your body.
Exactly. Improving hip IR is the same. It takes time. It takes consistency. And most importantly, it takes understanding your own body.
So no shortcuts.
No shortcuts.
Bummer. But I guess it makes sense. We're talking about like changing how our bodies move, not just forcing them into a position.
Right. It's about re-educating your body.
And that's where a physical therapist comes in.
Absolutely. They're like your hip coach.
Okay, I like that.
They can help you figure out a plan that's specific to your needs.
So they can look at my body and be like, all right, here's what you need to do.
Exactly. They can assess your limitations, see what's going on, and create a plan that addresses those issues.
So it's not just like, here's a list of exercises, go do them.
No, it's much more personalized than that.
Okay. So like with the marathon analogy, you got to have a good coach.
You need a guide, someone who can help you navigate the challenges.
And celebrate those small wins.
Yes. Celebrating those small wins is so important. It helps you stay motivated.
It's so easy to get discouraged, you know,
Right.
when you're working towards a big goal and you don't see results right away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But those small wins, they remind you that you're making progress.
Like maybe you squat a little deeper today than
Right.
you did yesterday.
Exactly. Or maybe you notice that your knees don't hurt as much when you run.
Okay, yeah. Little things like that.
Those are all victories.
I like that. So we've talked about how working with a PT, being patient, celebrating small wins. But what about the why? Why should people care about improving their hip IR?
It's a good question. It goes beyond just the physical benefits.
Okay, so it's not just about squats.
Right. It's about movement.
Movement.
When you improve your hip IR, you're basically expanding your vocabulary of movement. You're
Right.
giving yourself more options, more ways to move.
Ooh, that's a cool way to think about it. Like I'm unlocking new possibilities.
Exactly. And it's not just about the physical expression of movement.
Okay.
It's also about how movement makes you feel.
How it makes you feel.
When you feel strong and capable in your body, it affects your mind. It affects your emotions.
So it's like this mind-body connection.
Exactly. Movement can boost your confidence.
Is
It
it?
can reduce stress. It
Yeah.
can make you feel more alive, more vibrant.
I love that. So it's not just about the physical, it's about the mental and emotional too.
It's all interconnected.
This has been amazing. I feel like I've learned so much about hip IR and about movement in general.
Me too. It's such a fascinating topic.
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
I would say this. Now that you're aware of hip IR, start paying attention to it
Okay.
in your everyday life.
But not just in the gym.
No, everywhere.
Yeah.
When you walk, when you climb stairs, when you sit down.
Just notice it.
Yes. Just become aware of how your hips feel. Because that awareness, that's the first step.
The first step to better movement.
Exactly.
I love that. That's a great takeaway. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of hip internal rotation. We hope you learned something new and that you're inspired to explore your own movement potential.
Keep moving. Keep exploring.
That's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time for another exciting adventure into the world of movement and well-being.